You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
It's Travis Currah and Sheldon Jones back for another episode of Two and Out as we get you ready for week 16 of the CFL season. Now, Sheldon, I'm going to put the graphic up on the screen for the first time in a while. We've got a new number one in the CFL power rankings as the Alouettes have stumbled a little bit, tying the Stampeders last week, losing to the Lions the week before. So even though they were on bye, the Bombers are now the number one team on your power rankings.
Yeah, it was a toss-up between Winnipeg and Edmonton, but I just thought that there was one loss basically that the Elks had over the Bombers, so that's basically the reason why they're that way. But they're pretty much interchangeable. But they're definitely the two hottest teams in the league right now, for sure.
I was looking at this stat. The CFL had this in their game notes. The Bombers and the Elks combined for a 2-13 record from weeks 1 to 8. Since then, they are a combined 10-1.
Yeah. It's nuts. This season has been so crazy, and it's now, like when you said week 16, it just made me like kind of just sad because it seems like it's gone by so quickly and we're getting close to the end. And while I love the playoffs and I love Grey Cup, especially since we just got our flights this week, so I'm stoked about that. But nice. I'm not ready for the season to be over. So it's kind of bittersweet, of course.
I get what you're saying. And then, once the season ends, doing the pod twice a week and that grind kind of changes the routine heading into the winter. I get what you're saying, very bittersweet. But I always look forward to the playoffs and the Grey Cup, no matter what. Now, some of the news over the past week or so has been the CFL changing the standard for supplementary discipline on roughing the passer. So now this doesn't mean that they've changed the penalty, but basically some things that would have been warnings before are now going to be fines, and some things that would have been minimum fines are basically maximum fines now. So it does look like the CFL is going to start hitting players where it matters a lot, and that is the pocketbook.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what actually happens. This has been the year of the CFL deciding midway through the year that they're going to change a bunch of things. I don't want to bring it up again, but it's just some of these fines, like I understand the penalty called in the game, but I don't understand why it becomes a fine, especially when a player maybe can't help themselves. But at the same time, it's the reason this is happening is because they want the players to be more safe and to not hit the quarterback late or low or high. So I understand it. It's just they have to, I think common sense still needs to prevail. I don't know if it's great just having a black and white. If you get and I'm not saying that's what this is, but if you get a roughing the kicker or roughing the passer low penalty, that you're automatically getting a max fine. I just think they need to, like everything, you still have to have common sense. You still have to try to measure whether there was intent or not, whether it was incidental, whether it was a bang bang. I just don't like black and white when it comes to fining people or calling penalty. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Well, you said it. I think clear as mud.
I'm trying to sound not like a biased Rider fan that I get called out every single time here. So I'm trying to use my words without being that way. But Miles Brown shouldn't have been suspended or fined.
You like me showing off this new mug, by the way? I sorry to distract, but
available at twoandout.ca.
Shameless plug. I love it. The Toronto Argonauts are 6.5-point favorites as they are hosting the Hamilton Tiger Cats this week. The over-under at 53.5. Now, the Ticats 4-9 on the season. Half of their wins have come against the Argos, Sheldon. They won both games by a field goal, but the feeling, even though, hey, the Ticats well, let's face it, they haven't lost since Labor Day, right? They beat the RedBlacks last week. They were on bye, and then they won on Labor Day against the Argos. But all of a sudden, the feeling about the Argos has really changed after their performance on the West Coast. A game, again, where I think people thought that the Eastern time zone team would go to the West Coast and struggle, and the exact opposite happened there. So now as the Argos come home to play the Ticats, I think people are expecting them to become the team that they were much of last year, expected to win on a regular basis. So this is a fascinating game, but it still kind of feels like the Ticats are overlooked. And let's face it, anything can happen, which we have seen dozens of times in 2024.
Yeah, and Lions, Tiger Cats and Argo games are always like that next level anyway. So, and then this is the third time that they're playing, and you know that Toronto knows that they haven't won both the times before. So they're going to be trying extra hard to win. And plus, like, Hamilton is, they're nipping at their heels. Like, I know that this Argo win this last weekend was big for them because it pretty much made it, Hamilton has to win out and the Argos have to lose out now. But the Bo Levi showed up on Labor Day as Labor Day Bo, and he kept it going. And so momentum is a crazy thing, but also beating a team 3 times in a single season is a very hard thing to do, just because of tendencies and making changes and coaching changes. So very interesting, but also Hamilton hasn't played. Toronto hasn't played against Chris Jones's Hamilton defense yet either. So that's another wrinkle that maybe could help the Ticats go 3-0 here.
Now, there is some more news surrounding the ownership situation for the Toronto Argonauts, as Bell has sold their stake in MLSE. I think, it was $4 billion, something around there, but it was 37.5% of the ownership stake in MLSE. I think right now, probably nothing changes. I know that some fans are kind of concerned about it, but no point in being concerned yet. We don't know what's going to happen there, but there is some fascinating things here. The TSN deal with the league is up, I think, in 2026. Videotron out of Quebec has not hidden their desire to broadcast CFL games. Could Sportsnet be in on broadcasting CFL games, although the league is a direct competition with their darlings of summer, and that's the Toronto Blue Jays. So I don't know if they want to be in on that, but this could be the first time in a while that we have multiple parties bidding for CFL broadcast rights, and that's a pretty exciting prospect, I think.
I agree. Yeah. The one thing that I will kind of caution, and I don't know if this is a caution, but we've already seen so far that the CTV experiment is not going well. I saw, like, the TV, the viewership numbers haven't been released, but I saw on Twitter here before we were going live that the estimates were like 275,000 people watching the game on Saturday on CTV, and that's not good. So I think, yes, it is exciting to potentially hear that there are multiple places interested, or companies interested in getting the rights, but we'll have to see what happens. It's kind of, because CTV or Sportsnet, or no, I guess CTV is with TSN, right? Never mind. So Sportsnet, they do the Blue Jays games, but also CTV does the NFL games. So they both kind of have a bigger slice of broadcasting, that bigger than the CFL, which I don't know. We'll just see what happens there. But I hope it works out for the league, and I hope they get a big television deal and it can increase the salary cap and all that stuff. But I don't know. It's kind of weird. The viewership right now is just kind of puzzling to me.
Well, TSN is not the problem that everybody would like you to believe. At least that's what I think.
Yeah.
It's a consistent thing. Everybody knew where to look for the games, and now, well, I guess they don't, which is quite
well, and again,
interesting.
I think it's weird because I think this week again there's games that overlap. I think Friday night game overlaps, which is
well, everybody
like,
they want to avoid Thursday, they want to avoid Sunday, and this is what happens, right?
Yeah, I get it. I do.
Well, you get people crying that an 8 o'clock kickoff in Calgary is too late. So there's just no winning, man.
Yeah, that's true.
It's frustrating. I just think the games are when they are. And but it would be nice if the guide was consistent so I know what I'm PVRing. I'll say that.
Yeah. When you PVR one channel and you only end up getting 30 minutes of the game because poker is on instead.
Yeah, that's frustrating. Now, do you think that there's going to be an NFL team in Toronto in the next, I'll say, 20 years? It looks like the expansion fee they're talking about is like $7 billion or something like that, and then the cost to build a stadium is $3 billion. That's before buying the land, by the way. So Sheldon, those expensive cell phone bills are going to stay expensive, brother.
Well, yeah. If one of those two cell phone companies are buying an NFL team, it's Rogers and not Bell. So if Rogers was selling out of MLSE, then maybe I could see it, but not in 20 years is a long time. So I don't know if I can say no. I don't know, man. I honestly see them going to Mexico before Toronto, to be honest.
London, too, as well.
Yeah. Man, that would be a crazy, imagine having to fly to London for a game.
I know.
And then get back and get ready for the next Sunday. That you'd have to have a bye week every time after you play the London team. The NFL. Imagine London coming to
Sunday and then Thursday.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but half of how could London even be able to imagine London playing LA on a Thursday nighter?
They would probably suck, or maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. It's something to talk about anyway. As far as the Argos go, I think, and I don't know if the BC Lions were looking forward to the bye week, but the depth on the D line in Toronto continues to shine. They're still without, Jared Brinkman, who early in the year just looked like an absolute monster. Once he gets back, I don't know who's going to stop these guys. And I know the BC Lions offensive line has kind of looked uneven in 2024. At times, they looked great. At times, they were getting overpowered and overmatched. And that happened last week. I say that because the Ticats O-line didn't give up a sack against Ottawa. And Ottawa's got a strong defensive line. And they have given teams trouble. So that's going to be a fascinating matchup. The Argo D-line against the Ticats offensive line. If they can keep Bo clean, look, they got as good a chance as anybody to win here. Highlighting Ralph Hawley of the Argos, who I don't think anybody's talking about. He's got 7 sacks in 7 games, and he's tied for the league lead. What a stretch he's been having for Toronto.
Yeah, he just quietly came onto the scene. It's awesome to see. It's good when the CFL is able to build, different stars with different names that we don't recognize, and then we can give them their flowers.
Yeah, there's always unsung heroes every season that we don't even hear about in training camp, and then Labor Day rolls around, the end of the season, the playoffs, and look at that. They were such a big contributor to their team. The Argos defense will also be happy to welcome back middle linebacker Wynton McManus. And when he's back in that defense, I feel like almost everything changes. So the Ticats have their work cut out for them. They're going to be without running back Greg Bell, who has been their starter for the last little while here. So that means James Butler comes back into the lineup for the Ticats. Obviously a capable running back. The veteran guy is a fan favorite in Hamilton. He can catch the ball and he can pound the ball as well against the fierce Argos defense at BMO Field, which will make it even tougher on the Ticats offense. Casey Sales and Jonathan Moxey are going to be on their way out. But what were you going to say about that Argo defense?
Well, no, I was actually going to say something about James Butler. It's kind of interesting that he's slotting back in there now. It's kind of the same. I kind of feel it's the same way that Bo has kind of got back in there. I think.
Right.
I think, Scott Malavish just decided he didn't want to use Butler, and he got a new guy, and now this new guy gets hurt. So I can see James Butler coming in and trying to really show him that he made a mistake, but that just like Bo, I think Butler's going to be working the rest of the season for his contract next year with a different team.
Yeah, that's certainly a fair observation. That's what it's looking like. To me, in Toronto, they've got a stout rush defense, though, 4.6 yards a carry, and only two teams have given up less than 1,000 rushing yards this season. That is the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and that is the Toronto Argonauts. But highlighting Tim White, who I think, much like last year, got off to a slow start and then has turned it on. In 2 games against the Argos this year, 11 catches, 246 yards, 2 touchdowns. So if Bo has the time, you know that they're going to be looking towards Tim White, who all of a sudden looks like he's been having another great year in Hamilton. Now, the Ticats could sweep the Argos. Like, I can't imagine them sweeping the Argos for the first time since 2019 and then being behind them in the playoff race and missing the playoffs. That's just one of the wacky things of this season, because you're right. I mean, Hamilton 4-9, Toronto 7-6 with 5 games to go. It is a tall mountain to climb, but I think the performance that Toronto put on last week, it feels like they are sort of the real deal, and they're kind of back. I know the Argo offense, I think they got up to a bit of a slow start against BC. They kind of got better as the game went on and took their opportunities. But is the Chris Jones factor, can he hold off the big play from the Argos all game long? That's going to be a solid question.
Yeah, like Toronto's been kind of playing up and down, but like you said, the last week they were definitely more up than down. They have playmakers, they have offense that can go out and score in 2 plays. But like I said before, they haven't gone against the Chris Jones defense in Hamilton, and to me, Jones looks like he's having fun again, to be honest. Like, on the sidelines in Edmonton, he looked pissed off the whole time. And, like, obviously, when you're losing, you get pissed off. But he just looks like he's coaching for the fun of it again. And maybe that's what he needed. Maybe he needed to not have to, be the, defensive coordinator, vice president of football ops, coach, GM. Like, maybe he just needs to be a coach and just, learn to love the game again and learn to just enjoy it.
So, yeah, that's the early game on Friday Night Football. 2.5 hours later, it kicks off in McMahon Stadium. The Calgary Stampeders home to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And the Riders, 2.5-point favorites here. Now that Calgary has a tie, I guess the season series matters between these two teams. Although it might not matter anymore if Edmonton ends up passing Saskatchewan here. So Edmonton, they've got a big home and home here with Winnipeg, which we will talk about here. But there has been some conversation about eliminating the tie in the CFL. What do you think about that? Even Dave Dickinson, I thought he had a pretty interesting suggestion, basically saying after the 2 mini games, basically have a shootout, 2-point conversion versus 2-point conversion. And I think I don't know. I think that'd be fun.
I'm not saying it wouldn't be fun. My initial reaction to that is no, though. I honestly think that they should just make the overtime a little bit harder. I think you should start at like midfield instead of starting wherever you start. I think maybe make it 3 instead of 2. Like, I understand why they don't want to make it you go until there's a winner, because what if it's 8, 9, 10?
Yeah.
Like, you never know.
Although I'm down with that too.
I am too. Believe me, I am. It's just the people in the stadiums probably aren't down for an extra. Like no one wants to see, NHL overtime in the playoffs in the CFL. Like, other than
especially
us,
the
obviously.
regular season. Like, yeah, I get it.
But for sure, like, because in the Grey Cup they would just keep going, right? That like, so. And in the playoffs, it does make sense that way. But if you made them start at midfield or somewhere where a field goal isn't a gimme, I think that would help a lot more than, getting rid of a tie. I think there's a lot more reason and a lot more possibility of the Rouge getting tinkered with so that a game doesn't end on a Rouge versus a game ending in a tie. But one very interesting thing that I saw, and I think it was Derek Taylor who put it out, but since it was Calgary who tied, since 2007 or something, every game that there's been a tie in this league has involved Calgary or Ottawa. And they've tied twice themselves. So it's very interesting. So maybe we'll see another tie this week.
The Riders returned to practice after a bye week, and head coach Corey Mace not happy with his team's effort in Tuesday's session, ending practice an hour early. I don't know if he wanted to take him to the locker room away from the media and really say what he wanted to say.
100%.
Or needed to say. But did say that Wednesday's effort was a lot better for the Riders. Interesting news, Sheldon, that Frankie Hickson appears to be a healthy scratch. And Rock Armstead, the recently released running back by the Ottawa RedBlacks, has been signed by the Riders and looks to be getting the start against the Stampeders.
Yeah, which is really interesting. Like, when he got cut from Ottawa, I actually thought it would be a good idea for the Riders to bring him in, because I thought that maybe a guy like Coach Mace and a system like they're trying to build would be good for a guy who maybe needs to mature a little bit. But when they signed him, I thought it was like, okay, this just means that AJ is going to be out for longer, and we need a guy who can learn the offense and maybe get in there eventually. But for him just to be starting right away, it kind of puzzles me a little bit. Maybe they haven't been happy with Frankie Hickson, but at the same time, like, they haven't committed to the run for at least a few games. And if you're not going to commit to the run, it doesn't matter if you have William Stanback. It doesn't matter if you have Mike Pringle. It doesn't matter if you have George Reed. You're not going to get the yards and the scores. So. Interesting. I'm very interested to see how he does, if he can, maybe see some adversity with the Riders and maybe see if he's matured and took what happened in Ottawa as a humbling situation for him to get better. But he was pretty dynamic in some of those games for Ottawa. So like let's go. Show it.
A note on the Calgary Stampeders, they're giving the most rushing yards in the CFL, almost 117 yards a game. They're giving up 6.5 yards a rush and 7.6 yards a play on first down. Both marks are worse than the CFL. That run defense has let down the Stampeders this year. Did you see that Trevor Harris's record starting against the Stampeders? 2 wins, 11 losses, 2 ties. Not a favorable
that's the
record.
Ottawa part right
Yeah. So yeah, I know there's some Edmonton and there's some Ottawa in that record, but that's rough.
One of those is a Grey Cup though, which was pretty fun.
Yeah,
right?
if that counts.
Yeah,
If that counts.
that was pretty fun. Seeing the Stamps lose a Grey Cup is always fun.
Well, Trevor Harris doesn't have a Grey Cup win.
Didn't he win in Ottawa? Or was that? Well, that was Henry. Never mind.
He lost in Ottawa against Calgary and Edmonton, but yeah, Harris backed up Hank.
My bad.
Yeah. So I guess he technically has a ring, but not.
Put egg on my face. My beautiful face.
Have you ever gotten egg yolk in that beard of yours?
Oh, of
it
course.
is the worst.
Yeah, it's like if I'm, because I like my yolks runny, right? And so if I'm making a sandwich, I like have the plate like here now so that it doesn't happen. Because it's you can wash it out, but it's not gone until you have your shower. No, it becomes powdery and it's just not good. The Riders are going to be without defensive lineman Malik Carney, and it does look like Yoshi Hardrick is done for the year. He had the quad injury week 6 and won't be returning for the Riders. And they're also going to be without probably their MOP candidate, maybe a contender for MOP in the West. Not even on the top 10, according to some Yahoo who had Nathan Rourke ranked 2nd.
What?
Yeah. You keep talking. I'll find the tweet.
This is why I don't go on Twitter. But
this was like a CFL.ca article, I'm fairly certain.
Wow.
You keep talking. I'll find it.
So if he's not hurt or anything, congratulations to Roland Milligan. He's a new dad, so that's why he's probably going to be missing this game against the Stampeders. Keon Raymond and Spencer Wilson have signed one-day contracts in Calgary to retire as Stampeders. They both had 8-year careers, and they both have 2 Grey Cup rings to their names. So congratulations to those very familiar names in Calgary. And that offensive line in Calgary is about to get some help here. Zach Williams is able to come off the 6-game injured list here. I think he was on there for the whole 6 games, so he's going to start at left guard. Sean McEwen is a game time decision at center, and Josiah Coatney, who I think some fans are pretty excited about, is a game time decision on defensive line for the Calgary Stampeders. So they're getting some guys back in the lineup in Calgary. Josiah Coatney, 6'4", 325 pounds. So that would be a good name to have back in the lineup. And it does look like Bentley Sanders will return as a starting safety, it appears like. So the Stamps getting some guys back here. They have obviously Dedrick Mills back there, but I don't know. This is those Calgary Saskatchewan games are always interesting. I think Jake Mayer is 4-1 against the Riders in his career. We go back to last week. Dedrick Mills had 21 carries, 122 yards against the Montreal Alouettes. A tougher test against that Saskatchewan defense, though.
Yeah. Well, yes and no. Like the Riders are like the only team that can go into a bye week and come out of it worse off for injury wise, it seems, because they added 3 more people to their 6-game injury list. The Riders now have a full D line and a full O line on their 6-game injured list. And those would be good O lines and D lines. Like it's not like scrubs. Like there's light at the end of the tunnel because you see Lanier was back practicing this week. So like there is some, but when you lose a guy like Carney, like it's just frustrating. But anyway, I'm going off topic. So I found the article about this MOP watch, and so I'm interrupting. We'll get back to it in a second here. It was Marshall Ferguson who wrote this, which usually I don't. Usually I like what Marshall has to say, but not this. So I'm going to give you his top 10 of who he thinks is the MOP list right now. Cody Fajardo, number 1. Okay. Nathan Rourke, number 2. Vernon Adams, number 3.
I'd
Drew
probably
Brown,
still
number
put
4.
VA above Rourke if I had to rank
I would
them.
too. I would too. Justin McInnes at number 5. Most outside Canadian, I think he's probably got a lock right now.
Yeah.
I don't know about MOP. Zach Collaros, number 6.
Ooh.
Trevor Harris, number 7. Brady Oliveira, number 8. Brady hasn't even scored a touchdown this season. Not taking anything away from Brady, but he hasn't even scored a touchdown. Trey Ford, number 9. McLeod Bethel Thompson, number 10. This isn't most outstanding quarterback with a couple Canadians thrown in there.
Are we going to have a
Milligan not even on there? Like, anywho, sorry.
It's a weird race. Even if
it is,
call it a race, I don't know.
How can you have 2 quarterbacks from 2 teams?
4 out of the 10, yeah.
4 out of the 10 are from the same team. Like, give me a break, Marshall. Get better than that. But anywho, back to this game. So, yeah, it's a tough task. But this is a game that one of these teams needs to show the other team that they want it. These are the 2 worst teams in the league right now, I would say. Because that's what my power rankings say.
It is, yeah.
This is the Toilet Bowl, the second instance of the Toilet Bowl this year, and the first instance was, I think it was Hamilton Hamilton and Edmonton earlier on the season. Well, one of those got out of the toilet, so now it's time for one of these teams to get out of the toilet. But it's like you said, the history shows it's going to go one way, but I don't know. The Riders seem to always play Calgary pretty good at home. The crowd is 50-50. It looks like they're going to have a good crowd. I don't know, man. I still don't even know who I'm picking, to be honest with you, and we're recording our podcast. So,
a cooler game. 10 degrees expected, maybe a thunderstorm kind of thing. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the teams fare there. But yeah, I'm with Saskatchewan coming off the bye. Sometimes, and they've won the last 3 games coming off the bye. So, I mean, I guess that's a trend that the Riders have been experiencing a little bit lately. But
must not have had lots of buys the last 2 seasons in the later half of the season.
The Riders, they're the only team in the West under 500 inside their own division. They're 2-4. I mean, Calgary's 3-3. Saskatchewan struggling more on the road. Every team in the West actually is under 500 on the road. And Calgary has been all right at home. And if they were at home 15 times a year, maybe they'd be in a playoff spot right now. But they aren't. Both teams, it goes without saying, are going to be fired up. Friday night at McMahon Stadium under the lights, there have been some rowdy games between the green and white and the red and white at McMahon. We'll see what happens this week. We go to Saturday. I guess this is the CTV game. The Ottawa RedBlacks home to the Montreal Alouettes. The Owls are 2.5-point favorites here. Now, an Owls win combined with an Argos loss would clinch a home playoff game for Montreal. So obviously Montreal would know, that the night before, if Toronto ends up losing, that they would clinch a home playoff game with a win here. Both of these teams sort of stumbling in the last week, or especially Montreal. They tie Calgary, they lose by 2 touchdowns to BC. Now Ottawa comes off against the big win against Toronto, and then the pretty big loss against the Hamilton Tiger Cats, where they just can't protect the ball. And Ottawa, my mic fell over. Ottawa has been pretty good at protecting the ball. I think that has been the big, a plus with Drew Brown. He's been great at that, especially as a young quarterback here. But I mean, 10-2-1 the Alouettes, 8-4-1 the RedBlacks. I've talked about the Owls maybe not having the most adversity this year, but I kind of rethought that. They have. Cody Fajardo has been out for a few games, and now Tyson Philpot is out for the year, which just sucks. What a game. What a season he'd been having. Not only most outstanding Canadian, contender, he might still be in the East Division. But yeah, if he kept it going, he might have been an MOP candidate out of the East. But yeah, the quarterback thrown to him probably would have gotten the edge. We know how the voters work when it comes to football here. But this is definitely a tough blow to that Alouettes team. Definitely would have liked to see him come back down the stretch and be a contributor in the playoffs, but not happening this year.
Yeah, the one thing I'd say that Montreal has faced quite a bit of adversity, but they've actually rose to it. Like when Davis Alexander got in there, they didn't miss a beat, and Jason Moss has just been really good. Outside of these last two games, of being able to adapt to their adversity, because a lot of the games they're actually losing at halftime, and they came back to win in the second half. But I think last week they kind of played down to the Stamps a little bit. And I also feel like they didn't try to win in the overtime. I felt like they just were content with a tie for whatever reason. Maybe because they have such a cushion in the East. I don't know. But losing Philpot is huge. Like, I know they've been without him for a few weeks already, but I think a lot of people thought that maybe it'd be a little bit okay because they're getting Austin Mack back, but then he gets injured and he gets put on the 6th game. So you couldn't really get an addition there. But, they still have some really good receivers there that can and will take the ball and score touchdowns, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a tough blow for the Ottawa RedBlacks as Adarius Pickett is done for the year with an Achilles injury. That's worse, I think. Yeah, the energy that he brings to the field, the leadership he brings to the defense, some of the stuff you can't measure. And man, that's a brutal loss for the RedBlacks. And look, there's never a good time to have an Achilles injury, but damn, this point of the year, I don't know what else you say about that. That was a big addition to the RedBlacks defense, and it sucks that he's not going to be on the field for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and like you saw a couple players in BC who had Achilles injuries in the playoffs last year, and they didn't even get in until a few weeks ago. So him hurting it now, he might even be not ready by training camp, which sucks. But he was a really good signing for Ottawa, and I think he is one of the people that helped change that culture into a winning culture there. And so hopefully for them, he gets his surgery and he sticks around, because I think he would be a good guy to have still in that room with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Kalen Leyburn, he started at running back last week for the RedBlacks. He did all right, but with the RedBlacks, falling behind, he had 13 carries, 84 yards, so 6.5 yards a carry. That Alouette rush defense, they were actually giving up the second most yards a game, only to the Calgary Stampeders. So you can run on the Alouettes, just if you don't turn the ball over, you don't fall behind, and you'd be able to beat up that defense a little bit. Just getting the big play on them seems to be the challenge for opposing offenses. But the pretty good receiving core that's been built in Ottawa, finally, I feel like over the last month or so, they've gotten Dominic Rhymes going. He's on pace for 1,000 yards. Justin Hardy already has a career high in yards. He leads the CFL with 5 100-yard or more games, which another guy that's just not being talked about in CFL circles, at least I find. And the RedBlacks are still undefeated at home, so they've got that going for them here. 6-0-1. That being said, the Alouettes are undefeated on the road. 5-0-1. This is a heavyweight tilt in the West and in the East. And at the beginning of the year, I don't know if everybody expected this to be a heavyweight tilt come the fall time. I'm here for it.
Oh, me too. We're just getting to see the East Final early because this will be the East Final.
You're calling it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Montreal has won its last 9 games in Ottawa. I mean,
but I think if you took a look at a lot of teams' record in Ottawa over the past
That's
few years,
true.
it's probably tilted one side, right? Because they had that almost historic streak.
And there are similar streaks that the Elks are on the wrong side of. We will talk about that next here. But, both of these teams just looking for a rebound from last week. I know Montreal at least got themselves a point out of the effort on the road, but Ottawa didn't. And the Owls have stumbled a little bit lately. And I think we see this with teams who get off to a big lead in their respective divisions. The wins pile up, and then as the season goes on, start to slow down a little bit. So the challenge for them is to get back on track, and Jason Moss has his work cut out for them there against that Ottawa team who's still surprising a lot of people.
Yeah.
The Edmonton Elks home to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The Bombers are 1.5-point favorites here. We get it. Sheldon Trey versus Tyrell Ford. This is
Ford Bowl.
We get a battle for 2 straight weeks here. If you're a betting man, does Tyrell pick off his brother in either of the 2 games?
I think if you're going to go in either of the games, yes, I think he will get one. I think but I don't know. Like, do you think he's gonna stay away from his brother?
I was gonna ask you. Do you throw at your brother? Like, do you put Gino on your brother? Like,
I think you got. Like, I honestly, like, these guys want to show off against each other. I'm pretty sure it's sibling, and and it's rare where you actually see siblings who play on the other side of the ball, because like, the Philpot brothers could never play against each other. The Flutie brothers could never play against each other. But these are the ones that can actually, play against each other. Like, it'd be cool if there was a receiver DB combination that they were actually covering each other. But
Trey can make some runs into the secondary.
That's true. But Tyrell has been on a tear. Like, I don't have the stats in front of me. You can look him up, but like, he has, I think, 3 picks in the last 4 games or something like that. So he's become a ball hawk in that Bomber defense, and Trey Ford has that just such a. It's not like a cannon, but it's kind of like a cannon. Like, his throwing is just a little bit different than other quarterbacks. Just his mechanics of his throw, I think. He can fire it kind of sidearm a little bit. And I think they're definitely going to try to one-up each other. So, like, I think, at Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever, the next time they all sit down at a meal, one of them can be like, yeah, I got you, bro.
Yeah, I love this. I'm looking forward to it. Tyrell Ford has 6 interceptions on the season, including 4 in the last 5 games. That did include 2 picks in the Banjo Bowl against the Riders. Tough news for the Winnipeg Blue Bomber defense as Adam Bighill has season-ending knee surgery. He did say that's not it for number 4, and I think if we know the competitor he is, he's going to fight to get back onto the field in a Grey Cup hosting year for the Bombers in 2025. Maybe that's the last ride for Adam Bighill's career, but all the best to him. He's an animal, and I'm sure he's going to attack rehab like one as well. So that means Kyrie Wilson working at middle linebacker for Winnipeg, and these Bombers have beaten Edmonton 10 times in a row.
Again, if we look at
of course,
the 2 teams have been at polar opposites, but they match up a lot better this year than the past 5 years. We'll say that.
Diedrich Nichols missed Wednesday's practice for the Bombers for personal reasons, and Lucky Whitehead hasn't been practicing yet either for the Bombers. If we look
busy trying to get people to fight in the stands.
If we look at Edmonton, they weren't able to turn the ball over early in the year. That's changed. Their defensive backfield now leads the CFL with 20 interceptions. I mean, Jake Mayer was pretty generous, and Logan Bonner was generous. Those 2 Labor Day games where the Stamps quarterbacks maybe were colorblind, like green really doesn't look like red, but they were coming
Let's
down.
Hope that continues this week.
But Zach Collaros himself has thrown 13 picks this year. The thing is, the Elks need to get to him, and that D-line has been playing better over the past few weeks, and they add A.C. Leonard. He's been practicing. Jarius Jackson says he looks like the same old AC. They're trying to get him up to speed. He might be on the roster this Saturday against the Bombers. I mean, that's a big addition for this Elks defense at this point in the season.
Oh, for sure. He's got to get in there, get his legs under him, get offside once early in the game, so he gets that out of the way.
Well, and he was catching touchdowns last year too.
But that's the Chris Jones effect, right? That's what you play. Your defense, your receiver now. But yeah, no, AC. He's a very good player, and it's puzzling why it took so long for him to get signed. But, when you're playing a team like Winnipeg, the way that Winnipeg has progressed this season, you need to have guys like that in there. You need to have guys that come off the edge and try to, get Zach out of a rhythm, because when Zach is in a rhythm, he's tough to beat. But if he's rattled, if he's, feeling those footsteps that he's not used to feeling other than this season, you can certainly manipulate him into making some poor decisions.
Hergy Mayala likely week to week with a calf issue for the Elks, and Javon Leake is dealing with a personal matter here, and that's the big thing. If he's in there, the trio of running backs has been just a game changer for the Elks. Javon Leake, Justin Rankin, and Kevin Brown, he's come back in and he's been moving the ball at will. And now Trey Ford starting at quarterback. You've got 4 animals that can move the ball on the ground, and Geno Lewis is really coming on as well. They're using him more in the offense. The way the Elks are coming on, they really keep defenses honest, and you can't key in on one thing, otherwise they're going to make you pay, and that's why they've been able to put up the points that they have this year. But this, Sheldon, is crazy. The Elks and the Bombers have 5 games left. The Elks could they could finish last in the West. They could finish first in the West. It would take a sweep over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers here, but obviously not out of the realm of possibility. It's just phenomenal what has happened after starting the season 0-7, and first in the West is still in play for the Edmonton Elks. They've got the season series over the BC Lions, who are 2 games ahead of the Elks right now, but the Elks do have 1 game in hand over the Lions, and then it's all in their hands. I mean, Winnipeg's going to have a thing or two to say about it, but just remarkable that at this point in the season, we can talk this way.
Yeah, well, it's pretty crazy because I'm fairly certain, maybe outside of Calgary, and maybe Calgary still too, but all 4 of the other teams have playoffs in their own destiny. Like, right. If the Riders win out, they can still do that. So it's not like for it being this close to the end of the season, having all those teams still control their own destiny is crazy, and it just highlights the parity of the league and for sure the Western Conference. But yeah, it's just amazing, and just with the way the schedule worked out, how it's mostly west on west for the rest of the year. I know the Riders play Ottawa, but it's going to go down to the last game of the season to see who's going to be making the playoffs and what position. It's unreal.
Now Calgary could, if I don't
guess
know
they
if
beat Saskatchewan twice.
They do play Saskatchewan twice. They don't have Winnipeg again, I don't think. But yeah, Calgary could get into the playoffs. This is much like last year, where the Stamps faltered, and then they had those games with Saskatchewan at the end of the year, and they were able to sneak into the playoffs. And then Calgary and Edmonton do play one more time as well. That's not for a season series, but obviously it's going to be for some valuable points in the standings. Calgary just needs to win on the road. 0-6 on the road. I know they're at home this week, but you got to figure that out. You can't just be 0-6, 0-7 on the road and hope to make the playoffs. But this Edmonton-Winnipeg home and home, we are going to find out. I know lots say the Elks are the real deal. You know, things like that they're a Grey Cup contender. Well, put up or shut up time. And you're going to want to beat the Bombers in your home half of this home and home. And that would go a long, long way to securing a playoff spot for the Edmonton Elks, which is just amazing. Hey, the Riders looking for their first post-Labor Day win since 2021. So the opportunity is there for the Edmonton Elks to get into the playoffs. Okay, let's look at my fantasy lineup. Did you build one, Sheldon?
I did.
I might have to plug my nose, but Chad Kelly is my starting quarterback and my captain. Then I've got Brady Oliveira as my running back. Kevin Brown as my other running back. I got Mackay Polk for the Argos, which this guy had 23 points against the Lions last week. He had 17.5 points against the RedBlacks the week before, and he's $5,000. I'm going with the Tim White trend against the Argos. And I actually have Sam Emilus in my flex right now. I feel like if the Riders are going to win and they're going to make plays, he's going to have to be the one that's going to do it. I got the Argos defense right now. I think they'll get to Bo and get in his head there a little bit. Sheldon, what's your lineup looking like?
This is interesting. This is the first week in a long time where we don't even have a single overlapping player, so that's awesome.
Wow.
Drew Brown is my quarterback and captain. My running backs are Kadeem Carey and Walter Fletcher. Receivers, I have Tevin Jones and DeMonte Coxey. And my flex is Kenny the King Lawler.
All right.
And I'm rocking the Ottawa Red-Black defense.
Pick 'em this week is a challenge. Week
so 16. Was last week when we didn't think it was going to be.
Yeah, that's it. So I'm taking Toronto to beat Hamilton. I'm going to take Saskatchewan to beat Calgary. Very low confidence there. I think I might take Ottawa to beat Montreal. And I'm going to take the Bombers. I don't know. That's what I'm feeling now. What are you thinking?
I have the Argos, the Riders, the RedBlacks, and the Elks.
All right.
I'm not confident in any of my picks.
Usually at this point in the season, I feel a lot more confident about Pick'em. Not in 2024.
I felt 100% confident in all three games last week, and look what happened.
You can rate, review, and subscribe to Two and Out on your favorite podcatcher. You can go to YouTube and subscribe and like and comment there as well. And of course, go to our website, twoandout.ca. All of the episodes are posted there. Our merch shop is linked there, and our Patreon is linked there as well. Thank you for your support all season long. We've still got about 5 or 6 weeks of regular season action. I'm Travis Currah. He is Sheldon Jones. We'll talk to you soon to recap Week 16.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.